The preparation for the new NBA season is really starting to ramp up, with opening night being just a few weeks away. Training camp is underway, preseason games have begun, and most teams seem content with the rosters that they have, but that doesn't mean that we're done seeing moves being made by any means. There are still a handful of guys expecting trades to come, but as we saw with the Damian Lillard situation, the result of these situations can sometimes surprise us, which is exactly what Bleacher Report wrote about in a recent article. In it, they proposed 4 blockbuster trade ideas that could sneakily come about and shake things up. So as always, I'm going through each one, analyzing whether or not they're realistic, who benefits the most from them, and why or why not each team involved would want to do it. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first trade from the article is between the Orlando Magic and the Philadelphia 76ers, where the Magic receive James Harden in exchange for Markelle Fultz, Gary Harris, Cole Anthony, and a first-round pick. The James Harden storyline is starting to get pretty stale, since it has been raging on since July and no real traction has ever actually come from it. The trade market for Harden is more dead than it has ever been, with the Clippers being the only real actual suitor for him at the moment, and the offer they have put on the table for him has been some of their throwaway bad contracts and a pick, so obviously the Sixers don't have any inclination to accept it. This leads people to believe that other teams might swoop in and try to get James Harden with a slightly better offer, which is where the Magic could do something really funny here. This proposed trade would be a pretty wild full circle moment, since Markelle Fultz was drafted first overall in 2017 by the 76ers. His shoulder issue then held him back, and that resulted in the team trading him away. He has since blossomed into a very solid point guard in Orlando. To now return in a package for a player of Harden's caliber would actually be pretty funny. I think Fultz's fit alongside Ben Simmons back then was a lot more wonky than his fit on the current Sixers roster would be too, because the team now has a lot more shooting in the backcourt, and Fultz is a terrific playmaker with a smooth handle, crafty ball handling ability, and explosiveness at the basket. Gary Harris has also been a very solid 3-and-D wing in each of the last 2 years, coming off of a season where he shot 43% from 3. Cole Anthony bolsters the team's backcourt even more with some shot creation, and a first-round pick to sweeten the deal would definitely turn the heads of the Sixers front office, I think. This probably isn't something that James Harden would be very happy with, since he wants to go compete on the Clippers, but if he were to buy in, then he is the exact kind of player that the Magic are missing, as a veteran playmaker who can run the offense at a high level and likely unlock the best of players like Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, who seem poised to take their games to another level this year. Ultimately, I'm not sure if the Magic would take this big of a swing, but with this offer on the table, I do like it for both sides if they were. The next proposal from the article we'll be taking a look at is between the Los Angeles Clippers and the Atlanta Hawks, and in it the Clippers receive Trae Young, Clint Capella, and Saddiq Bey in exchange for Paul George, Terrence Mann, Ivica Zubac, and a first-round pick. As I mentioned in the last segment, the Clippers are the one team showing interest in James Harden, but seem hesitant to actually finish the transaction. This is sneakily a massive make-or-break year for the Clippers, because after this year, both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have the ability to opt out of their contracts and hit free agency, and if things go south for the team this season again, then the feeling around the league is that those two are unlikely to re-sign with them. The Clippers know this, so rather than getting a rental of James Harden for a year, shifting their focus to Trae Young could save their long-term future. Trae is the elite playmaker at point guard that the Clippers have desperately been searching for. Clint Capella can still capably anchor the middle, and Saddiq Bey is a solid depth piece on the wing. So from the Clippers' perspective, this is an incredible deal, but I'm actually not sold on the Hawks buying into it. Yes, Paul George is probably one of the best players they could possibly get in return for Trae Young in a trade, but he's also 33 years old on an expiring contract. I don't see George staying in Atlanta long term, and I also don't believe He elevates the Hawks to contender status in the 1 year that he would be there, so giving up on 25-year-old Trae Young for that would be a gross mismanaging of assets. On paper, you can definitely argue there is equal value being exchanged here, but in the grander scheme of things, it skews way too heavily towards the Clippers. The next proposal from the article is between the New Orleans Pelicans and the Cleveland Cavaliers, and in it the Pelicans receive Jarrett Allen in exchange for Jonas Valanciunas, Jose Alvarado, and a first-round pick. These are two teams that are on similar paths, just in different conferences. Neither are necessarily viewed as teams in that absolute top tier of contenders in their conferences, but at their best, they can both absolutely compete with anybody. They also have differing needs from the center position, which is key to both of them. The Cavaliers were a dominant defense last year, but their offensive struggles stemmed from the fact that both their power forward and center are lacking in shot creation skills and shooting. Meanwhile, the Pelicans have a ton of offensive talent in their lineup, but could definitely use some more help defensively, especially in the interior. That's the logic behind this trade, because Jarrett Allen would definitely be an upgrade inside defensively in New Orleans, and while Valanciunas isn't necessarily a lights-out shooter, he is above average from three, and his low-post scoring skills blow Allen's out of the water. I really like the idea of swapping these two, but what I don't love about this deal is how much extra the Pelicans have thrown in. Jose Alvarado is really the only actual point guard in their rotation right now, and his hustle is integral to the Pelicans' second unit. Then adding in a first-round pick on top of that feels like overkill for a player in Allen, who I'm not sold on being that big of an upgrade over Valanciunas. So if these two teams can agree on more reasonable filler to round things out, there's definitely something there. And finally, the last deal we'll be discussing from the article today is between the New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers, and in it, the Knicks receive Buddy Hield in exchange for Evan Fournier and a first-round pick. This one may not be as big as the other trades discussed, but it would still make a big impact if fulfilled. Fournier's Knicks tenure ended last year with him being a healthy scratch from most games because he's just not as good as he used to be. He, however, isn't really the focus of this deal though, because the things both sides are after are the first-round pick for the Pacers and Buddy Hield obviously for the Knicks. Hield could step into the role that Fournier leaves behind as an actually capable and elite floor spacing option on the wing, as a 43% shooter on high volume, and the Knicks absolutely need more shooting in their rotation. The Pacers, meanwhile, weren't able to come to an agreement on a contract extension this summer with Hield and probably realize that he's going to leave in free agency if they don't trade him, so getting a first-round pick for him is probably an accurate price tag. It's pretty straightforward, it helps both sides, so I could definitely see this one coming into fruition. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about these hypothetical trades. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.